Okay. Good morning. I call to order the August 2nd, 2017 meeting of the Staff Hearing Officer. I am here. Susan Reardon is absent today, so I'm Renee Brooke, City Planner. I'll be the Staff Hearing Officer today. Do we have any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or any changes to the agenda otherwise? Okay. Any announcements or appeals to note? Okay, and I don't believe we have comments from members of the public who want to speak on items not on the agenda, so I'll open and close that part of the preliminary matters and move on to item A, which is the application of Elsa Reeder, agent for the Perlman family, for a project at 1833 Garden Street.
Good morning.
Good morning. I don't see the pointer. Kathy, is the pointer nearby? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, good morning. My name is Andrew Perez, and the project before you today is located at 1833 Garden Street. It's a 7,500 square foot parcel, zoned E1. An existing development on the site consists of a 1,600 square foot single family dwelling and a 437 square foot two-car garage. This lot is only 7,500 square feet, which is about half of the minimum lot area requirement in the E1 zone. So as a result, there's a lot of nonconformities. You have the garage and the house that are legally nonconforming to the primary front setback. The house is also legally nonconforming to the secondary front setback, and there's a nonconforming open yard situation. While the open yard does meet the minimum area requirements of 1,250 square feet, it does not meet the minimum 20-foot dimensions in all areas. It's still less than 20 feet from the garage to this interior property line and about 10 feet behind the house. So the house is currently under construction to expand the kitchen back here. There's a minor interior remodel, re-roof, some minor exterior alterations, and replacing existing or windows and doors and existing openings. And that project did not require any discretionary approval, but during the construction process, the permit was revised to include an entry addition in this area, convert an existing window to a door along this facade, and add an air conditioner with the condenser to be located in the open yard area. So these improvements require 3 zoning modifications, a primary front setback modification to allow the entry addition to be located in the primary front setback, a secondary front setback modification to allow the enlargement of this existing opening, and an open yard modification to allow the condenser to be located in the non-conforming open yard area. So the front of the house is 15 feet from the front property line, and the existing entry is in an alcove set back a little further. As you can see in the floor plan, the entry addition is about 20 square feet, and it'll be located under an existing roofed area, which is represented by this yellow line. So staff is supportive of this request because it's under the existing roofed area and is not increasing the overall encroachment into the front setback. And because of this, staff feels that it's not anticipated to adversely impact the visual openness of the streetscape. The second requested modification is to enlarge a window on this facade. So here's the existing window, and I'll show you on the elevations the proposed door right here. So this is beneficial to the property owner because it would allow direct access to the outdoor living space, and staff is supportive of this request because, as you can see, there's some vegetation that will screen the improvement from the right-of-way in Pedregosa. And additionally, this is an improvement that will be allowed without a modification when the new zoning ordinance goes into effect beginning of October. And the final request is an open yard modification to allow this air conditioning condenser to be located in the open yard. And as I described earlier, the open yard is non-conforming, and due to the site constraints, there are limited options available to place the condenser that are both out of the setbacks and not in the open yard. So this kind of ended up being the best location for the applicant. So staff is supportive because of the site constraints and the limited options available. And additionally, this will also be an improvement that will be allowed when INZO goes into effect in October. So in conclusion, staff does recommend approval of all 3 requested modifications, subject to the findings in the staff report. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you. And did the agent or applicant want to add any more?
I think Andrew's done a great job of
Okay.
explaining this, and if you have any questions, I'm available to answer those, but I think that that's
Okay.
pretty explanatory.
Could you just state your name for the record?
Sure. Elsa Reeder, CSA Architects.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe we received any public correspondence on this item, correct? I did read the staff report. I went to the site. My dog and I visited the site. Not the site itself, but so I was able to walk around quite a bit and get a feel for the neighborhood and saw the project under construction. And so I do agree. I think staff laid out great basis for their support for these modifications, and I'll just walk through my thoughts. I don't think I had any questions on this one. Oh, just confirming, though, that we have or we will check the noise level of the air conditioning condenser to make sure it meets.
We have them on file and confirmed that it does.
Great. The lot is quite constrained, not only in its size, and that it's half the size of what's the minimum lot area for this zone, but also being a corner lot. So as Mr. Perez explained, it's highly constrained in terms of any additional development on the site that could conform to setbacks and open yard. It is still, I think, a modest proposal for the site with minor changes or encroachments into the setback and the open yard. I can support all 3 modifications. I would minimally adjust or add to some of the findings. I think the finding for the primary front setback modification for the proposed entry addition is adequate as proposed by staff. It's not increasing the overall encroachment into the front setback. It would stay under the existing roof line, and it's a minimal encroachment into a highly constrained lot. The secondary front setback modification, I can support. I would add to the finding that the proposed door is appropriate because it will be screened by existing vegetation, minimizing any potential impacts to the streetscape, and is not adjacent to any neighboring residences. So sometimes there's concerns with doors and setbacks if they're too close to other interior properties. In this case, it's a front setback where the encroachment is occurring, and I understand from my site visit that this is one of the more usable areas of the yard, so having direct access to that is understandable. And then for the open yard modification for the air conditioning condenser, I appreciate that it is outside the setbacks because it's often challenging for staff and the staff hearing officer to support modifications to setback standards if we're dealing with sometimes noisy equipment, whether it's air conditioners or pool equipment. So this request is for an encroachment into the open yard. It's already non-conforming. I would just add to the findings that in the last sentence, in addition, the open space area of the property, let's see. The open space of the property, although not consistent with the dimensional standards, does exceed the 1,250 square feet required by the zoning ordinance and the air conditioners outside of setbacks, which is consistent with purposes and intent of the ordinance. And so with those modified findings, I can approve the 3 setback and 3 modification requests that you have requested.
Thank you.
I will note that my decision is appealable or can be pulled up to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, and item B is application of Warner Young, architect for Dorothy Gasser at 1715 Olive Street.
Good morning.
Good morning. Staff will do a brief presentation.
Good morning, Andrew. Good morning. Name's Andrew Perez once again, and the project before you right here is located at 1715 Olive Street. Existing development on the site consists of a 1,500 square foot single-family dwelling and 145 square feet of a garage that is shared with the adjacent property at 435 East Valerio. The subject property is only 3,000 square feet and subject to 2 front setbacks as located on the corner of Olive here. And the combination of the 2 front setbacks and its just small size creates a number of nonconformities on the property. The dwelling is legally nonconforming to both the primary and secondary front setbacks as well as the interior setback here in the southwest. The garage is also legally nonconforming to both interior setbacks, and there's a nonconforming open yard situation. Open yard basically from the edge of the setback around the garage. So it meets neither the area nor the dimensional requirements. And the proposed project consists of the demolition of the shared garage and addition of a new 200 square foot 1-car garage. So the dark blue area is the area where the garage will be expanding. To do this, 4 zoning modifications are required. 2 interior setback modifications to allow the garage to expand in the interior setback in this area and here. A distance between buildings modification to allow the distance between the garage and the house to be less than 5 feet. And a open yard modification to allow the garage to encroach and further reduce the non-conforming open yard area. So as for the interior setback modifications, between both the southeastern and southwestern setbacks, there are about a little more than 20 square feet of new garage floor area in the setback. However, staff is supportive because the project will result in a conforming covered parking space as on the property, and it'll be much more functional than the existing 145 square feet of parking space that it currently exists. Additionally, staff is supportive because the new garage is adjacent to the garages on both of the neighboring parcels. So 435 East Valerio is proposing a new 2-car garage in this area, and then this guest unit's above a garage on 431 East Valerio. The distance between buildings modification is requested because while the existing garage is located 5 feet from the edge of the dwelling here, with the expansion in order to meet the minimum interior dimensions required by transportation planning, that distance will be cut down to 3.5 feet. And again, staff is supportive because of the site constraints and the lack of options available to provide a covered parking space. So in order to meet that interior dimensions, just the result of that is the reduction of that 5-foot space between buildings. And additionally, this is a requirement that will be eliminated when the new zoning ordinance is effective come July or October 1st, excuse me. And the final request necessary in order to permit this one-car garage is an open yard modification. The existing garage, the proposed garage will reduce the open yard area by 31 square feet along this area. And again, the site constraints are such that there's really no options to provide a conforming garage that meets the interior dimensions that will provide the property owner with the off-street parking space. So in conclusion, staff is supportive of all 4 requested modifications, subject to the findings outlined in the staff report.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to do a presentation and start by stating your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Warner Young. I am the architect for this project at 1715 Olive Street. Andrew, thank you very much for the presentation. I only would like to add that this whole project came about as a result of this property owner remodeling the house and asking for a separate 2-car garage. So that was kind of the impetus that started this whole thing in motion. And they are in the process of finishing this project, and in order for them to build this 2-car garage, it's contingent on reaching some sort of agreement with the city in order to move forward with their project. And they are actually flipping this house, and so they're going to sell this property. And so they would like to get it back on the market, but they're stopped. Everything is stopped over here until we come to some sort of conclusion here. And so that is kind of the history behind this that started this whole ball rolling. And as you can see, it's just super constrained. It's a very unique situation, and something that I've never run into before. And so, yeah, we're requesting quite a bit, but there's just so many constraints, and there's not a lot of off-street parking in this, in neighborhood. There's no, on-street parking, and so, and the woman who owns the house, Teddy, she would love to have a garage back, so she's already having somebody kind of taken away from her, and so really she's just requesting that she get back what she already has, and and requesting that she do have an actual covered space, so that she can, for her car here, and then she can tandem park if she has a guest. So because of the, like I said, the limited amount of street parking in this area. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We did receive a public correspondence on this item. Liz Minch, who is, I believe owns the house, lives next door at 431 East Valeria Street, and is requesting, so what she's stating is right now with the current configuration with the existing garage up against on the property line, it essentially acts as a barrier between the two properties. Her request is that there be assurance that a fence will be constructed on this portion of the property, since the garage would be moved slightly off the property line. So can you speak to that a bit? And generally, I was going to ask you to kind of walk me through different options that you considered for the location of the garage. I noticed it's being pulled slightly off the property line. Just your thought process in trying to fit this on the site, and where you ended up with it.
Well, I mean, hasn't been too much discussion about this, only because of the constraints. And so they do want to, right now there's like a plant screen all along this, so constructing a fence or meeting that requirement, that's not a problem. And then, but there is quite a bit of a plant screen already along this. But if the neighbor would like to have a fence there, I don't see a problem with that at all. As far as moving it or doing anything, there was really no discussion because there really is nothing. I mean, it could possibly move forward some, but we would like to get enough parking here. It could maybe potentially move forward this way if the neighbor is feeling impacted. But again, there's really, as you can see, there's just not a lot of wiggle room here to move things around, and this is the only, there's an existing apron here for parking. There is no other place to put the garage on the site. This is the front, and this is her entry, so there would be no way to put something like, say, in this location. So,
Sure.
And it's unfortunate because, she really doesn't have a backyard. She really doesn't have much landscaping around her property, and so, it's like I said, this is an extremely unique situation.
Right, and the reason I was asking is I understand the existing configuration is odd with the garage splitting the property line and some sharing arrangement going on, and so to have each property have its own dedicated parking, I think may make it actually more likely to be used. Andrew, I assume that this neighboring property received modifications to place the garage 3 feet, or is that allowed in this zone for parking?
That's allowed for parking.
Okay, so 3 feet meets the setbacks.
However, they did receive approval for an open yard modification to allow the garage to kind of encroach into their open yard area, in this area.
Yes.
And the reason I asked the questions about what other options did you explore is obviously if there's some solution where these garages can be closer together, it's preserving more open yard for all. Obviously, you don't have control over what that adjacent property owner is proposing. And so I understand placing it on this property line. There is still room to get through and access around their building. Is that the same reason why you didn't place it here on this property line? Was it just for being able to get back there and have room to access the back of the garage and stay on property?
Exactly.
Okay.
Like I said, and there is that potential to probably, perhaps move it forward this way a little bit,
Right.
But the problem is right now is just kind of we left it in the same location, and that was kind of everybody. This neighbor who owns this property is actually funding this aspect of the project to a certain degree. They are working together in order to come up with a viable solution so that these people can move forward and have something that they can sell on the market that would be appealing. And right now, if you look at the photographs, it's just not very appealing. They have a 2-car garage and they have a little tiny 1-car garage, and so they are trying to make it, as appealing as possible for sale. And then also, down the road when somebody actually, does buy this property and they actually have their own separate 2-car garage, which would be a better option than trying to share something with a neighbor in its original configuration.
Sure.
So I think they're trying to make a win-win for everybody,
Right.
But it's I know they're asking quite a bit from the city to kind of look the other way as far as these 4 modifications that we're requesting. So it's like I said, it's a very unique situation. I've been practicing for over 20 years, and I have to say this is the first time that I've actually come in and asked for 4 modifications.
Dealing with 2 very constrained sites today. And I understand the trade-off. Your request is to try to provide a conforming parking space. The city has an interest in having properties provide conforming parking spaces in order to not impact on-street parking. The trade-off is the open yard, and that is oftentimes a property owner's choice. It's unfortunate that there aren't some other usable areas on the site for open yard. It's just a very small lot. One other related question I had is,
Yes.
What would be the ultimate outcome with the 2 garages and the driveways and curb cuts? Is there any opportunity to break up some of that impervious surface and have some landscaping between? Do you envision, how would this property line be treated at the end?
I believe that there is landscaping, and there's going to construct. I think they have paving here. I'd have to go back. I'm sorry, I have to go back and look at the architect. I wasn't the architect of record for this project, so I'm not 100% sure.
You might have those plans.
Oh,
Let's
okay,
see if that
great.
helps.
Yeah, but I know that they are proposing. I know that they have particular paving here, and I believe they have some. They must have had a landscaping done of some sort.
Okay, so Olive Street is here.
So they're showing. This is the two-car garage. Here's the property. Here's the existing location of the one.
Grass Creek driveway.
It doesn't say what they're doing as far as the screening, or if they're doing anything.
Okay, yeah, they don't call out a fence or if this is landscaping or not.
In the staff hearing officer approved set of plans for the modification, there is a 42-inch hedge shown here. So I'm not sure if that was missed on these building permit set, or what the what's going to happen with that setback area.
Okay.
Well, if it's part of the approvals, then I'm sure that they'll put that in when the time comes, because I know that they were talking about wanting to have some sort of screen.
So there isn't one there now, right? Because the driveway
The driveway is there now.
covers the two
Exactly.
properties.
So I'm, it's contingent on the modification. I'm sure that we can follow up with that and follow through and make sure that the screening is there, the landscaping.
Yeah, I think as a trade-off, because it is nice when we have shared curb cut configurations and minimize the number of curb cuts on the street. I understand the reason for why these are being split. And Andrew, this project didn't have to go to SFDB.
No.
No, so there's no design review for the 1715 Olive Street project. Okay, so I understand the site is very constrained in terms of lot size and having two front setbacks. The existing development on the site makes it challenging to provide improvements that conform to all the standards. I do think that the trade-off of having a conforming parking space on the site is of benefit, even if it is at the cost of reducing open yard. I can support the modifications, and I don't have any changes to the findings as drafted by staff. I would add, though, as a condition of the approval to maximize, working with the neighboring property owner to maximize the amount of landscaping or reducing the driveway on your site, which you can control, reducing the driveway to the minimum area needed for the vehicle to access the garage, and then have landscaping or at least some type of pervious surface outside of the driveway. Also, just ensure however the front of the property ends up being treated, that it does meet the visual triangle that we have at driveways, whatever hedges or whatever are planted there meet those sight lines.
Right, of course.
Since we'll have different driveway configuration now. I'm not going to make it a condition of approval that there be a fence constructed back here. I don't find that necessary to meet the findings for the modification request, but I would encourage you to work with neighbors.
Of course.
If that's something that is of benefit to both, then you may want to do that on your own in working out relationships with your neighbor.
Of course.
So with that one added condition, I can approve the 4 requested modifications with the findings as outlined by staff. My decision can be pulled up to the Planning Commission or be appealed within 10 calendar days.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andrew.
And so with no other items on the agenda, I will adjourn the staff hearing officer meeting of August 2nd.